LinkedIn is the place to be to be. Drive real results for your business with quality leads that convert.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important to compare all your health and prescription drug options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare plans now at Medicare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again time for This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs, he's Ben. You're in Clown World. We welcome you. There has been many words and phrases used to describe the state of affairs that we are currently in. Interesting. Catastrophic, gay and retarded. All of these are true. And we are going to go over some more clowny things this evening. How are we doing tonight, Ben?
Doing well. I mean, I've been enjoying these Trump slow rolls of his policy and cabinet positions. I think it's going to be the standard going forward. Instead of doing like a Netflix style, all the episodes at once with a cabinet, he's just going to slow roll them.
He's bringing back the weekly episodic TV format,
Yeah.
The primetime TV format.
I'm enjoying it.
I am too. Dan Bongino has an interesting theory about why he's doing it the way that he's doing it, and it makes perfect sense. He'll bring out, one day he'll bring out one like controversial, like Pete Hegseth or something, and the whole media and the left wing loses their fucking minds over it. And then while they're too busy, blah 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 blah, then he'll bring out another one, and then they're like, oh my god, this one, blah 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 blah, and then he just brings out another one, and it's too fast for them to. Oh wait, whoa. Okay.
Sorry, it was just in the lobby.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll be getting to what that was about here shortly, because it does.
Well, Pete Hegseth, he's been getting hit pretty hard. He's got a cross of Jerusalem tattoo, Deus Volt on his bicep, and people are like, he has literal Nazi tattoos. People are like,
no, he's got Crusader tattoos. Sweaty, look it up.
Yeah, and then I guess there was some sexual assault allegation now.
Well, you can almost set your watch by a sexual impropriety allegation coming to pretty much any Republican these days.
Well, I mean, he does seem to have a little bit of wiener control problems.
This is true. He's got like 3 wives and several mistresses and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chalk that up to like high testosterone, big Chad energy, or maybe something else. I don't know.
But yeah, his name's been popping up the most in the media out of all of them. I mean, the rest of them, they'll have some outrage for a day and it goes away. But Hesketh has kind of been, ever since his name has been thrown in there, every day they've been hitting on him.
Right, and he's probably wouldn't have been the first pick or the second or the third or the fourth if I was running things. Personally, I didn't know really much of anything about him.
No, me neither.
He's like a former major in the National Guard. He's a Fox News host, but he's also a graduate of Harvard.
Yeah.
So he's got some bona fides. He's not just some vet bro that's on Fox News. So he's got some smarts and some brains, but he also, like, just the way he talks is like he's trying too hard to be macho.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interview that I saw that he did where they were asking him about how you're going to get the woke out of the military, and it just also dealing with how to deal with Russia, and it just came across as like very surface level. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. Like Colonel Douglas McGregor is like, yeah, he might be blustering, might just be making people think that he's dumber than he actually is, but it really just comes off as like very shallow. Like, there's tactical thinking and then there's strategic thinking. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm a very like ground level tactical thinker. I'm not a big picture guy. And to be like the SecDef, you got to be the big picture guy. And the way that he's talking in a lot of these interviews is very like ground level, like grunt speak.
Right. You think a major would have a little better 1,000-foot view than what he's presented.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, majors are like the second lieutenants of staff officers. Like, where do we put this guy? Where do we put this guy?
Yeah, and he got out before you really get in the majors, when you start having to get into the politics of the position. So I don't know. We'll see if he sticks it out. I mean, it sure looked bad for Trump to pull him, or maybe Trump will just let him languish and get denied in Congress.
Or maybe his entire point of existence is to draw fire while Trump does
another one in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trump knows he's going to get canned. He's got another one ready to go. Oh, here's this one. Confirm him. I'm saying he knows that guy is going to catch fire in Congress, so he'll just let him get nixed by Congress and then have somebody else. He's had a backup the whole time.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that Trump is kind of, they make it out to be that it's a negative in his last administration, where he burned through cabinet positions. Like, he'd get somebody, they didn't work out, he'd fire him and get somebody new. People were like, oh, he's burning through his cabinet. But at the same time, it's like, isn't that kind of what you want? You hire somebody and they end up being incompetent and you fire them. You don't let them fail upwards or stay in their position. And that's kind of the mentality that I think is a huge part of the problem with what we've got going on in Washington, D.C., is that a lot of these bureaucrats, they get in these positions and they suck out loud. And the people who hired them just let them keep on trucking, or even worse, promote them out of that position.
It's the same at every level of government, though, pretty much. State, even at your city level government, you have those people. It's just, It's so bizarre how a bureaucracy is a bureaucracy no matter what level.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of incompetence.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's hit.
I was going to say Thomas Massey, who's I've been hearing he is, I've been hearing he isn't, I've been hearing the offer's been floated, I've been hearing that it's not been floated, but is maybe being considered for agricultural secretary, which, would be cool. But some reporter asked him about Matt Gaetz being confirmed by the Senate to be attorney general, which, other than Pete Hegseth, has got to be the one that has received the most scrutiny from, like, literally everybody. And Massey turned around and he looked at the reporter and she said something like, well, what happens if the if the Senate doesn't want to confirm Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, he turns around and he says, well, then we recess. Matt Gaetz is the Attorney General. Suck it up. And that's the thing that it might end up having to be that a lot of these cabinet positions end up being recess appointments just because everything's so toxic right now. But the Republicans control the House and the Senate, with the majority leaders being both Republicans. They could be persuaded to call a recess for 11 days, at which point the various cabinet positions end up getting filled by recess appointment. But so one of the online theories that I've been hearing from like one or two places is that Matt Gaetz is not actually being considered for Attorney General, and this is just a way to troll the left. He did resign his congressional seat, but the real play is that Ron DeSantis is going to name him to fill in Marco Rubio's Senate seat.
I thought he resigned this Senate seat. So when the next one kicks over, because didn't he win re-election or no?
Matt Gaetz is a representative, not a senator.
I mean, he resigned his congressional seat, but he won re-election. So in the next Congress, he'll be seated again, right?
I'm not sure. I think if he resigned his seat, then he's resigned his seat, and then Ron DeSantis, being the governor of Florida, could assign him Marco Rubio's Senate seat until the next election that seat comes up to, because that would be his prerogative then. But Matt Gaetz' Attorney General is also one of those things that would just be like, yeah, it's not the first, second, or third choice that I would go with, but it is probably the funniest.
Yeah. We have over here somebody commented Herrera for ATF director too.
Yes, that is one that I've been seeing floated a lot. Lauren Boebert got on Fox News and out endorsed Brandon Herrera as the ATF director. There's a huge social media push to have him named as ATF director. And as ATF director, he could do a lot of damage to that organization, which is...
Well, he's been vetted too. That's a good choice. I mean, the left tried to find dirt on him when he was running in Texas. Yep. He's got a pretty clean record. Solid dude. I think he'd be an excellent choice.
Yeah, the worst thing that he's got going for him is he's got potty mouth and edgy content on the internet. So
yeah. So Simon's here. Let me pop him up here. We could talk about that shadow government thing. Is that a good time?
Yeah, that's a good segue in because it has everything to do with Trump's cabinet appointments.
Let me get Simon up here. 3, 2, 1. Simon, are you there?
Hi there, guys. How you doing?
Hey, welcome. Simon. We had a video we wanted to play and ask your opinion about shadow governments in Britain. So let me pop this up here real quick.
Political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as shadow education secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad. Senator Michael Bennet as Shadow Treasury Secretary and Congresswoman Susan DelBene as Shadow Commerce Secretary could help ensure the middle class and small businesses have a voice in government and call out Trump's proposed tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. As Shadow Defense Secretary, Congressman Adam Smith, a great representative for the people of Washington and not a Fox News host, could counter Trump's threat to use military force against his political opponents and work to ensure that the Department of Defense stays loyal to the Constitution and not some wannabe dictator. And Senator Tammy Duckworth could argue against cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs that would delay the benefits and care our service members have so rightly earned. If Trump hands over the EPA to big oil ally Lee Zeldin, we could see Congresswoman Kathy Castor pushing back for environmental protection and conservation to protect the air we breathe and the water we drink. And if Trump pushes to ban abortion nationwide, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro could step in as Shadow Secretary of Health and Human Services to defend women's right to choose and argue against the gutting of Medicare by Trump and his cronies. Mr. Speaker, new times require new solutions. The shadow cabinet isn't just about opposing extreme MAGA attacks on our government. It's also about making clear what we stand for, not just what we're against. If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice...
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
another guy.
the reason I wanted to get you specifically in here, Simon, is because you're British, and I've heard that there are like shadow secretaries and shadow ministers in the British government. I've heard that like shadow minister of the exchequer is the one that sticks in my head. I don't know what that is or what that person does, but what are those shadow positions in the British Parliament, and is it similar to what this guy is proposing, or is this guy just openly being seditious on the floor of Congress?
No, it's in all governments that have parliamentary systems where you have, in theory, a loyal opposition, and that includes all the Five Eyes nations, such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the British. You'll have a minister, and then you'll have their opposite number, so that when they have a debate on the environment or a debate on energy or a debate on defense, those will be the representative of the leading party and the representative of the main opposition party. And those will be the two people who debate the issue in the parliament, although it'll be opened up to questions from other people as well. So in traditional parliamentary systems, unlike the American system, that is entirely normal, but America doesn't have a parliamentary system.
Right. So in the parliamentary sense, a shadow is in the literal sense where it's like a shadow cast by light, where it's like your twin, your double, the person that follows you everywhere and is the inverse of you. And whereas this guy is saying it's almost seems like it's shadow in the like cloak and dagger.
No.
Sense.
It's not a continuity of government or a parallel government or a state within a state.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so this guy's just proposing treason then.
No, not really. He's saying that there should be key individuals dedicated to opposing plans from specific departments. That's not particularly unusual, to be honest. But what is a problem is if the civil servants leave their neutrality and they become the shadow government. Then you've got a state within a state.
Which is what we had the first 4 years of Trump, I believe.
Yes, most definitely, including a whole number of people that Trump actually appointed.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's kind of wrapping it up in the language and the imagery of trying to institute certain aspects of the parliamentary system of government into the U.S. government, but it just seems like open sedition on the floor of Congress.
No, it's not. And thank you. I think there are a lot bigger fish to fry than that guy, to be honest.
Yeah, he was just a useful idiot. I never even heard of him. They probably gave him a PowerPoint presentation and slapped him on the ass and sent him out there.
He seemed really nervous while he was up there talking.
It was his first time up there. He's a new guy. But, Simon, you've been following the Alex Jones saga. Hobbs has really been in on it. I guess the big news... dive into it, Hobbs. What's the backstory on it?
All right, so the backstory on it is, for anybody who's been living under a rock, is that Alex Jones said some things back in 2012 about the Sandy Hook shooting that he said he speculated that it didn't happen. And well, it wasn't just him either. He wasn't even the originator of the Sandy Hook school shooting. Didn't happen. narrative. It was something that a lot of people on the internet were talking about. He covered it. He speculated it. He interviewed a couple of people who swore up and down that it didn't happen. And of course, you'll never find them anywhere anymore. Nothing bad happened to them.
Mhm.
But Alex suddenly became the Sandy Hook guy. Friday morning, because InfoWars was kind of in limbo, Harrison Smith did Moonbase Live on Friday morning, and he laid out a timeline of the Sandy Hook school shooting and the Sandy Hook truther movement or whatever. And if he pulled up Google in 2 different pages, and he set time brackets. So from January of 2013, which would be like just a few days after the shooting happened, until November of 2016, if you type in Alex Jones Sandy Hook, there is nothing. No articles at all for almost 4 solid years. From November 2016 all the way up to 2020, that's all there is tying the Sandy Hook hoax story around Alex Jones's neck. So Harrison is speculating, and I tend to think correctly, that when Trump got elected and called into InfoWars to thank him, as he did right after the election, that the media decided that they were going to go on a full court press against Alex Jones to tie Sandy Hook around Alex's neck so that they could then tie Alex around Trump's neck in order to just be one more thing to try and sink the Trump presidency and the legitimacy of it. So then over the years, he's been sued for defamation by the families of Sandy Hook for emotional damage. The settlement got upwards to something like $2.76 trillion at one point, which is the GDP of India, which is absolutely insane. And then it got pared down eventually to $1.5 billion, which is still an astronomical number of dollars for somebody like Alex Jones to expect to pay. So then everything had to go to bankruptcy court. Alex Jones went through personal bankruptcy court, and his LLC, Free Speech Systems, also had to be going through bankruptcy, and it was put up for auction. Now the auction comes around on Wednesday, and the Monday before that, it was originally planned to be an open public auction where you could go in and bid, and you bid this much, and then you bid a little bit higher, and then you bid a little bit higher until eventually one side gives up, and whoever bids highest ends up winning. Well, 2 days before the auction is set to take place, the federal trustee calls Alex and says, nope, we're changing the rules of the auction. It's going to be a sealed auction. There's 2 parties involved. You each are going to put your bid in a sealed envelope, and then we're going to take it behind closed doors, open them up, see what the bids are, and choose the best one. And they also said that they reserve the right to not necessarily give it to the highest bidder, to the best bidder. And to a lot of people, that on its face sounds kind of fucky. And it would be under normal circumstances. The only, I'd say, different set of circumstances that one could say that a lower bidder is the better bidder, and this was an example put forth by Viva Fry on Thursday, was that if you have something like, say, an electric car company that goes bankrupt, and you have 2 parties bidding on it, and one party bids $1 million, and then Tesla comes in and bids $750,000. The other party is technically the higher bidder, but then when you take into account Tesla's experience and expertise and infrastructure manufacturing electric cars, the lower bid ends up becoming the better bid because of the value added. So that kind of is one way that you could square that circle. But that's not what happened. Wednesday comes around, and the 2 parties drop their closed bids into the envelopes, give them to the trustee. The trustee unseals them, keeps everything secret, and ends up awarding the auction to The Onion, which is a has-been satire site that hasn't been funny or relevant in 15 years. And the biggest thing that you can think about is why is The Onion not in bankruptcy court, because I haven't seen shit from them in a long time. And the stuff
I didn't even know they still existed. I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, sure they exist, but I didn't know they actually put material out.
I see things very rarely, every once in a while, and they're always cringe, gay, lefty nonsense. But they've been sold 3 times in the last year, and they're currently owned by somebody at NBC. But anyways, they were declared the winners, and Alex Jones cried foul, and for good reason. Allegedly, they bid $1.7 million and the $1.5 billion that Alex Jones allegedly owes to the Sandy Hook families, essentially leveraging his debt as a line of credit in a cash auction. So in the grand scheme of things, they came with peanuts, 1.7 million. They were outbid, but the federal trustee, because the Onion was using the money owed to the Sandy Hook families to try to buy InfoWars, he deemed that the better choice because it would essentially, through proxies, be owned by the Sandy Hook families. All of this came to light when the federal judge in Houston, a guy by the name of Chris Lopez, decided that he was going to hold an emergency meeting because he did not authorize the auction and he did not sign off on the auction and he has not certified the deal. So he's put a halt to it until they can have an evidentiary hearing to figure out what the hell happened here. Partly because they changed the rules at the last minute, and partly because the $1.5 billion is still currently under appeal. So that $1.5 billion is going to, since it's under appeal, it could get pared down to almost nothing eventually. So that $1.5 billion not only doesn't exist in the sense that it's money owed, but it also doesn't exist in the sense that it could end up being not $1.5 billion down the road due to the appeal process. Compounding that is the fact that doing so is illegal. So the guys at the Onion might end up having a criminal investigation opened against them for these shenanigans. And right now, InfoWars is back in the hands of Alex Jones. He is broadcasting from the old studio. Infowars.com and band.video went down for a day, and they're back up online right now. Harrison is going to be back in the studio Monday morning. He was planning on doing Moonbase and trying to figure out what he was going to do from there, but he's going to be back at InfoWars on Monday morning. Alex is also going to be back tomorrow night on Sunday Night Live. So things are a little bit harrowing over in the InfoWars space. There's a lot of other stuff that I kind of glossed over there, and I'm sure Simon has some more details because he's been following this probably just as much or more than me. So, but that's the TLDR of what's going on between Alex Jones and Everytown for Gun Safety and the Onion and InfoWars right now. It's a mess. Harrison described it as some serious House of Cards shit.
And how's Elon fit in here now?
Okay, so the way that Elon Musk fits into this is because they've been trying to get Alex Jones's personal Twitter account as part of the deal. So since Twitter property is involved in a sense, they're just kind of there overseeing it, because if they come to Twitter and say, hey, we have control of @RealAlexJones, they're going to need a court order to do it. So they've got lawyers sitting in the courtroom to figure out what's real, so they don't have to go through like hearsay and stuff like that. Or maybe Elon's in on the buying process now. I don't know. It remains to be seen. Things are still kind of up in the air. The way that I would describe this is that using a man's debt as leverage to buy his property in bankruptcy court, to me, this is I called it a retarded Ouroboros of shitty financial decisions. It's like a snake eating its tail, and it keeps gagging, but it's not smart enough to spit itself out. Simon, what am I missing here? What did I gloss over or forget? Did we lose Simon?
Not that I'm aware of, unless we can't hear him talking.
Okay. Well, anyways,
So Harrison was all set to do his own thing then.
well, I wouldn't say that he was all set to do his own thing. His Friday morning moon base, he did it for like 2.5 hours. He did it from his office in his house. Like when he talked to us, it was basically that. But he was going to try to do his own thing, such as it is. He had several thousand people watching, and he got a ton of support. He almost broke down and cried because people were like flooding him with super chats and telling him how awesome he was and everything. So, if it came down to it, I think he'd be okay in the short term. And I'm sure that another place like the Blaze or something would hire him because, I mean, Harrison's great.
Well, I saw the Blaze, and Alex Jones was on the Blaze, wasn't he?
He called into Glenn Beck's show. Yeah.
So,
he also had Steve Bannon on the very last episode on Wednesday. Steve Bannon then did coverage of it on his own show, and Steve Bannon just got out of prison, so here's another guy that's had the state weaponized against him.
And what was the deal with the power getting shut off, and they left the studio and went to a backup studio? And
yeah, they've been seeing this coming for quite some time. So they had a backup studio a couple miles down the road that is not owned by Alex Jones or anybody associated with InfoWars. It's owned by a third party, and I don't know if it's being formally leased or if it's like
probably Joe Rogan,
like a handshake agreement or something. Yeah, it might be Joe Rogan, but that's where he went after they shut the power and the servers off at the official InfoWars studio.
And
so he
had a backup Rumble, backup everything, just ready to go when they flipped the switch.
Right. Yeah. I said that the only thing that they really accomplished was getting the name InfoWars. They just pissed him off and mildly inconvenienced him for like 20 minutes because it went from Harrison's morning show where they were scrambling to like get everything out of the building and get everybody out before they shut the power off and whatnot. It went from that at about 11:15. And then it went over to about 10 after 11, and Alex Jones was in the new studio broadcasting. It was honestly, it was a pretty impressive thing to see.
So going forward, then that judge put a stop to it, and they're going to redo the bids, or
that remains to be seen. They're currently in the middle of doing an emergency evidentiary hearing that might take place next week sometime, so that he can get all of the information together and try and figure out. But yeah, it's like when they told him what was going on and everything, he just put his head in his hands and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" Because he's been dealing with this bankruptcy thing for a while now, and the Democrats or whoever it is that's coming after Alex Jones, it's like they feel a compulsion to just fuck around. Like the Sandy Hook families ended up suing and getting $70 million from Remington. So they could have put a portion of that $70 million down in a cash auction and just done things square, done and dusted. They own InfoWars, and this whole thing would have, Alex would have had to go to his new studio, go on his new channels and everything. They would have InfoWars to do with it as they please, and everything would have been done. But instead, what they ended up doing was doing this $1.5 billion leveraging Alex's debt against him to buy his own property, this retarded Ouroboros of bad financial decisions, and they ended up shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I don't know. I don't know what the families are. They're going to ruin it if they get it. So I don't understand why they're.
Well,
It's all weaponized lawfare, like you're saying. The left just wants to shut it down, and now Alex has proven that they can't. I mean, they can shut it down, and it'll just hop over to the next studio over.
Right. They want to claim InfoWars as a scalp. And the reason that they wanted to hand it over to the Onion, the guy who owns the Onion and the guy who runs Everytown for Gun Safety, those were the two guys that were behind this whole thing. And they went on with George Stephanopoulos, and they explained why they did what they did. And what they're going to do is they are going to take the name InfoWars, the intellectual property, and they're still going to run it as a website doing satire and spoof and fake news and stuff, talking about like Sasquatches and UFOs and other stupid shit like that. And Everytown for Gun Safety was going to be the primary advertiser on it. So it was going to be not only a blow against the First Amendment, but also a blow against the Second Amendment as well, because they were going to use the power of InfoWars as a driver towards anti-gun.
I mean, InfoWars used to cover. Do they still cover? I haven't watched. I mean, I watch InfoWars infrequently, but I haven't seen any UFO or like Sasquatch coast to coast style. I mean, back in the early days, that was a lot of the InfoWars show. But I mean, it's like they still have this image of what InfoWars is, and it's not even that anymore. Like a satire thing wouldn't even work there, but that's not what the show is.
Right. Yeah. They would run it into the ground, and just like the Onion, they would end up going bankrupt and end up having to sell it down the line. Wait. The thing is like if InfoWars went bankrupt and had to sell off organically, that would be one thing. But it's like Vice News and the Onion and the Young Turks, they have to continually get these cash injections from these wealthy subversives like George Soros in order to stay afloat. InfoWars has managed to stay afloat on its own in spite of the lawfare and attacks that have come against them, these bankruptcy proceedings, these defamation, these spurious lawsuits and everything that are just trying to kick them in the teeth. And they ended up going bankrupt because they've had the entire apparatus of the state weaponized against them. They're a money-making organization that could stay afloat on their own and end up making a profit. And the fact that they ended up having to go bankrupt and have their own debt leveraged against them in the proceedings, to me, it's like you're going to hold this guy accountable for $1.5 billion, but then you're going to take away the money-making apparatus that he uses to get you that $1.5 billion. So you will never see that $1.5 billion that you have leveraged as a credit line in order to buy that. It doesn't make it's circular. Yeah. It's circular.
It's so stupid.
And it's stupid. Now, here's the thing that I think. Now, I'm not a lawyer. And if anybody who's close to the InfoWars people can get this to them, maybe they can have one of their lawyers take a look at this. But my idea is that if the Sandy Hook families are truly going through emotional distress because of these proceedings, then the Sandy Hook families and Alex Jones need to work together in a class action lawsuit to sue the law firms that have been dragging this thing out for the last 12 years. Because that's the people who are making this.
That's always who the real winners are.
Right. That's the people who are putting you through this emotional distress. Alex Jones speculated on a story that was big on the internet, and he got it wrong, as journalists and people in general tend to do at times. He got it wrong. He apologized. The whole thing was done, dead, and buried. From 2013 to 2016, it was done. It was a dead issue until Senator Blumenthal and high-powered lawyers in New England decided to exhume the corpse of this story and marionette it out in front of the American public to turn Alex Jones into some type of a ghoul so that they could then hang him around Trump's neck just as one more albatross around Trump's neck during his first presidential term. InfoWars was not targeted because of the things that they got wrong. InfoWars was targeted because of the things they got right.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there going forward. I still think Elon probably put a bid in on it. I mean, why wouldn't he?
It's possible.
I mean, it was a profitable venture. It's not like they're buying a company that wasn't making money. Whoever buys it.
Yeah, it's a money-making endeavor.
I don't know.
And we
so
still don't have Simon.
Yeah, I don't know. I sent a message to him.
Yeah, me too.
He's here but not here, so his phone might be having an issue. He had to step away for something. I guess Trump made a return to Madison Square Garden for UFC and was well received.
He usually does get well received at those events. I saw a picture. Somebody took a picture behind him on Trump Force One, and him and RFK are sitting there watching like old UFC fights on the screen, and they're like, "This is going to be fun."
Yeah, we didn't touch on RFK much. Put his HHS head. That's interesting that he put him there instead of FDA.
Yeah.
But I think HHS has a lot more power than the FDA head.
Probably. And considering the work that Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to do with the Department of Government Efficiency, the possibility that groups like the FDA, the USDA, Health and Human Services, and others that have a lot of Venn diagram overlap might just get rolled into one department anyways.
Yeah. So that might be what the play is there. It's going to, food and drug should probably just fall under there anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And go with that. But I wonder what happened to Simon. It's too bad Simon isn't here, but on the global front, Zelensky's pretty much realized that the gig is up.
Yeah. They are shitting their pants.
Yeah. I saw where he released a video on Ukrainian news and was like, yeah, we need to figure out what the wind down is going to be. was the gist of it.
Are you talking about Zelensky?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Jig is up, man.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting how that would unwind, whether they just draw a line where it is now or Russia gets donuts back, or I don't know. It's going to be messy either way. Because they've got to control. Just because they get those areas doesn't mean they're going to be able to control them. There could be guerrilla warfare going on. Who knows?
I know. That's what I said when this whole thing in Russia kicked off, is that the age of magnanimous warfare is over, and we are currently in the age of how did I put it? Insurgency, but I used a different word. It's nobody wants to admit defeat anymore. Mm-hmm. They would rather just go to ground and engage in a perpetual insurgency than.
No, that's what I can see happening there. I mean, they'll have to control that area. It wasn't all. There were a lot of Russian supporters there, but it wasn't all Russian supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So be interesting how that plays out. And looks like Israel is happy because Trump has basically said he's going to give them carte blanche to do whatever they want over there.
Yeah, that's what you said a couple of weeks ago. It's like, yeah, you guys can go ahead and do whatever you want to do. Just don't ask for our money and weapons to do it.
Fine. Yeah, I don't care. Whatever. As long as we're not sending money. And I think that's what the Doge is going to say too. You know, we need to quit being involved in all these extracurricular activities in other countries, just sending them money. And Europe is, it's so crazy how much is happening this quick. Europe is starting to realize, okay, maybe we need to quit leaning on America for all our defense. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to have socialite. They talk about all these benefits that they have in the Scandinavian countries in Europe. Oh, we have free healthcare, we have free college, blah blah blah. Yeah, well, what's your defense budget?
Exactly. Your defense budget is a phone call to America.
Yeah.
Long distance phone call. And the hundreds of bases that we have dotted all over the European continent. It's real easy when somebody else is spending $750 billion on military.
So that tells me that what Trump is saying he wants to do isn't just a bunch of bluster if all these other countries are already prepping for what's going to happen.
Yep. And the thing is that so many people in this country are losing their fucking minds because they have been conditioned over several generations to believe that what we have right now is how this country is supposed to be. Whereas things that Trump and Vivek and Elon are wanting to do to kind of pare back the fat is getting America back to the way it's supposed to run.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what do you mean the education is going to go back to the states and you're going to abolish the Department of Education? It's like, motherfucker, the Department of Education was founded in 1976.
Yeah, the biggest cell phone I saw was some liberal post. It was something talking about how terrible education. It was like in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And they said, and we wanted in the last 40 years, all these test scores are down, blah, 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 blah. And then they want to get rid of the Department of Education. Like, that's going to help. That's exactly the reason you need to get rid of it.
Right. There's a very famous graph of, it's got, test scores in math and they're practically flatlining, and test scores in English and they're practically flatlining, from whenever they started measuring these things. And it's school budget. And it's flatlined right up there with it until 1976, and it goes at a 45-degree angle up to pay for all of these like compliance administrators. Yeah, you cut the Department of Education out, and you send it back to the states. Oh, but somebody might get left behind. It's like, places like Mississippi or even here in Nebraska where we don't have a whole lot of money to throw at it and everything else. Yeah, maybe our schools will suck, but maybe they'll be good. We don't know. But here's the thing. Somebody is going to be left behind. Others are going to do a lot better. But the model that we're using right now, everybody is getting left behind.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And if you've got the money and the wherewithal to move to a state with a better education system, God bless you. And if you don't.
And that shows too. I mean, if some state is doing something that works great, maybe the other states that suck need to look at it and figure it out.
Yeah. The thing is that a lot of these places that have failing education programs, even though there's allegedly a federal standard, they think that it's just a problem of throwing money at it. But the past 40 years have proven that throwing money at the problem doesn't help, and in a lot of cases is making things a lot worse.
Well, and the education lobby in a lot of states has so much power. All these teachers are unionized, and not all of them. A lot of them are unionized, and they're all pitching into they have political action groups, and basically they're using your tax dollars to get more tax dollars.
Yeah, that's
like here in Nebraska, they repealed vouchers because they were worried it would degrade the school systems.
See, I don't understand what the hell these teachers' problems are. Like, you hear these public school teachers talking about doing away with public schools as if that's going to put them out in the streets. And it's like, maybe temporarily, but it's like, hey, if you're a teacher and you're a good teacher, you're going to have a job. Okay, there's not some warehouse full of teachers that they're just waiting to spring into position once everything gets privatized. The teachers are going to have to come from somewhere. They're going to come from the already existing public school teachers. You're going to have to change your curriculum a little bit. You're going to have to do your job in an efficient manner. You're going to have to churn out students that know how to read and write and do math and do all of the things that students are supposed to do. There might be some requirements for civics. There might be some requirements to do a lot of other things. But if you're a good teacher, your job is safe. And dollars to no nuts, I'm willing to bet that you're going to get a pay increase.
Yeah.
So quit your bitching. Stop letting the unions gaslight you into being on the side of government and taxes.
Yeah. There's multiple states doing vouchers and it's working well. It's like if you're a shitty school, nobody's going to go there. All right, well, sorry, your school's going to shut down. The kids are still going to have a voucher to go to a different school. Yeah. But they just control. They had too much power. And I like that now that Trump's in there, all of a sudden the left again is pushing for states' rights.
I saw a story saying that California is seriously considering a secessionist movement. Cool.
Good. Great.
Glad that you rediscovered federalism.
Now we need most of the Northeast to discover it too.
Yeah, no shit.
But, well, I still haven't heard from Simon. I guess we will cut the international news short tonight.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of domestic stuff going on to
there was
pad out a show.
We filled up a show anyways without getting into international stuff. But check out Simon and Sam on Weaponized News. You can find out all the goings on. We'll be back. Wait, is this next week's not Thanksgiving, right? So in 2 weeks we'll probably miss the weekend after Thanksgiving. But we'll be back next week for a show. And you can join us then, same time on Rumble, YouTube, Rose Number 2 Liberty. We're at rose2liberty.com also if you want to check out our merch.
Yes.
And
do that. Go buy our merchandise. Next Wednesday is my birthday. Send us money so that I can buy myself something pretty.
Buy a shirt for Hobbs' birthday. Go check it out. And as always, thanks for joining us and stay honky.